Good morning, everybody. Hope you had a good night's rest and ready for Tuesday. Um, Today, we're going to have a different kind of topic. This one was actually offered up by a friend of mine. Had an epiphany about something, and he kind of correlated some things for me, and I was like, "It's a good topic." He said, "Yeah, it's a good topic. I think you should talk about it." So we're talking about it. We will talk about it. At least what I see as a I will see this as a opportunity to try and expound on some things that have been kind of in the wheelhouse a little bit, but more so that it hopefully will help some people understand some things about what's going on today. Um, we're going to go over the story because it's a kind of an odd story to just plant in the middle of this book of Genesis in chapter 11. Um, it's just kind of mentioned and they move on. It's not expounded on. It just kind of says it and goes on to Shem. So we're going to read the uh, the portion of the scripture that talks about it. It's in Genesis 11, 1 through 9. So we're going to read it first, and we're going to talk about what it means and how the new Tower of Babel is being formed as we speak. Okay, um, so let's begin. The Tower of Babel. Now the whole earth had one language and one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Then they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city, and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad on the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, "Indeed, the people are one, and they have all one language. And this is what they begin to do. Now, nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of the earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore, its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole earth. And from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. Okay, so question number one. Do you find it even remotely odd the kinds of things that God says in these verses? Um, the kind of credit he gives man, and then what he does after giving that credit. If you say you were an atheist, okay, say you didn't believe in God and you had your reasons, do you see that as being another nail in the coffin of your belief in God? Because, I mean, he's all about unity and peace, right? And if he's about unity and peace, shouldn't he allow mankind to be one to help build something? And especially if they're trying to get to see him and to heaven, I mean, shouldn't he allow that? Shouldn't he be happy that mankind took the initiative to do that? Shouldn't you? Um, what do you think? Do you think that if you were a atheist, that you would believe God less because of this story? Or how about if you were just a surface believer, would you believe God less? Would you hate God because he's talking about causing confusion when he's not the author of confusion? Remember that, right? He's not the author of confusion. So why would he go and confuse the language of people? That's contradictory to who he is. By the way, we'll be talking about that tomorrow. Just in case you're ever going to wonder, tomorrow we'll be talking about confusing Christianity. Anyway, I digress. So the story just kind of gets planted there of these people that said, I just want to build a tower, and a city, and so that our name will be known. Nothing wrong with that. Why would, you know, I just want to build a tower to that its top will be in heaven, you know? Why complain? Why complain? I saw a question about CC closed caption. I can't control that. That's a YouTube thing, and I think it might be available after. So can't make that happen. Sorry. Um. So piece by piece, let's go through the story, and then we can see whether or not what he did was warranted by man standards. Again, we're not talking about this from God's perspective. We're talking about this from our perspective of God. Okay. So when they said that, come, let us bake bricks and bake them thoroughly, and the brick for stone, asphalt for mortar, they said, let's build a city ourselves. Let's build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. The odd thing is that God goes down and says, nah, anything they put their minds to now, they're going to be able to do. We can't have that. Does that sound like something God should be saying, people? I mean, think about it. Let's become the devil's advocate for a minute. Why would God, who is all love and all unity, go down to confuse people who are trying to make a simple name for themselves? They just wanted to be industrious, right? All we're trying to do is to build a tower so that people have access to heaven. That's all. I mean, granted, we'll take the credit for building it. You know, it's the same reason that God kicked Adam and Eve out of the garden. You see, he didn't want man to stay in a certain state permanently, and the tree of life was in the garden. If they had even remotely touched the tree of life in that state, it would have been over. So, what seemed like a bad thing ended up being for our benefit, right? Okay. Is that the case with the Tower of Babel? Now, you have a bunch of people building a tower that they say will be for themselves. They want to build a name for themselves, they want renown. And not only that, they want to prove that men can make it to heaven on their own. That is the bigger deal. You see, what God saw was their ego and their aim. And where he is cannot have that. Not that they would make it to heaven. I don't think they would have made it anyway, but it was the intent. So you're not coming up here and you're not going to be building anything with what you're trying to do. It's not going to happen. I will be making sure of that. You're not coming anywhere near me like that. It's not happening. Confusion. Now, the correlation between that and today that jumped out at me, one language. What is the biggest push today? The biggest push is to have people use what they call what? Inclusive language, right? They want you to use inclusive language. What they're trying to do is to go back to and reclaim the foundation of Babel. They want to bring back the so called man made unity. You hear it all the time. We need peace. We need unity. We need togetherness. Of course, they don't want it through God. They want to make a name for themselves. And what has mankind been striving to do? Explore the heavens. We're not talking about flat earth or global earth. We're talking about the heavens. They want to explore the heavens from spacecrafts to manipulating the airwaves. They want to control and they want to reach. Okay. So then their next goal is to build that. They build it out in language, infrastructure, rules and regulations, and reach. What they are all doing is Babel 2.0. They are doing Babel 2.0. The same thing that the people did in Genesis 11 is that they are making for themselves a name. People today making themselves a name. It's always about self. If you look at the global structure right now, everyone is about self. Self aggrandizement, self notification, self glorification, self indulgence. Really, if you look at it, they're trying to do every one of the cities that have ever been looked down at by God. They got Babel and they got Sodom and Gomorrah. So if we look at it this way, we have a Babel 2.0 situation going on. Will God come down and confuse mankind a second time? I don't believe he'll handle it that way again. Mostly because he said he wasn't going to. Not that he wouldn't confuse the tongue, but he will not be handling man's rebellion the same way the second time. You see, by the time the flood showed up, right? Mankind had been so inundated with rebellion, they got wiped out. I do not believe he's going to intervene any more than he has intervened with the situation with Christ and giving people the opportunity. Whereas Babel, they didn't have that option. Today we do. He already gave us the out to come out from among them. In the meantime, people on the world side are striving their best to create a form of peace without God, to create a form of happiness without God, to perform a kind of leadership without God, headship without God, rulership without God. The end of Babel 2.0 will come on Judgment Day when he wipes everything out. But the similarities are crazy. They're crazy because you have a group of people who gathered together and all speak in a way that they can understand. If you look at the UN, it's the same thing. Just take a look at what global leaders do. Look at the UN, look at all the meetings that they have outside the UN. Leaders from around the world gather to create what they want as a global population that have a global purpose for what they consider becoming better. They have a translator to make sure that everyone understands what's being said, unlike Babel. Aftermath, I mean. But before, when they were building it, everybody understood. They have now gone back to the onset of Babel. They don't want to be scattered across the whole earth. The exact same thing with the UN. They want everybody to be one society. Same thing. And they have the intent of making man God. Everything is about them, just like the UN. Outside of the UN, you have the global meetings of the World Economic Forum, exactly. The planning of all these agendas. It is an upgrade to the Tower of Babel. That's what this is. It is mankind trying to create for themselves a new limit on God and no limit on man. Because in their mind, man is better. Man's better. This reach is not exclusive of everyone else. It is including everybody. It brings in all of the people that want to defy the rulership of God. Now, as for why God did what he did at the Tower of Babel, because he's God and he can do that. Again, remember we talked some time ago about God's sovereignty, right? And his headship. And as man, we want to say, "Oh, God only has so much push that he can do, and he's good. He's not going to do that, and that, and that." Let's back up some things here. I want folks to understand something. Whatever God does, he's justified in doing. Whatever he does. Anything he chooses to do, he can do and has all rights to do it. Let's get that off the table first. Either that's true or he's not God. I just want people to be clear about where my stance is on God and why I don't trust. I'll tell you right now, I have no room to question what he does at all. I don't. Me not saying I can't. Of course I can question him. I can be dumb. I can question him. I can say that he doesn't know what he's doing. Of course I can say that. Not saying I have the right, but I have the openness to. And not saying I will be right when I do it, because I'm not. But either he's God of all or he's not God at all. So before you go mouthing off about why would God allow, because he can. Why wouldn't God? Because he doesn't have to. How come God? Because he's God. That answer seems too easy because we don't like, mankind wants an explanation for everything that suits our mindset. We don't want his explanation. We want him to explain something to us that one will make sense to us and two that we'll agree with. We don't want a Babel where God's in control. We want our Babel. You want to know why many won't make the cut? Because they don't really trust God of anything. They have no trust in him at all. They have a superficial love, and then they have a love that's linked to what he can do and did do and will do. They have that kind of love. But rare do you find people that love him just because of who he is, without anything else added. In fact, that you would love him even without the sacrifice of Jesus. That you would love him even though he would not save you. Hear me out. Knowledge of who God is and loving who he is should not, again, listen carefully, should not be hinged on what he's doing for you. It should be based on just who he is. Who he is gave us the option to be before him because he gave a way to do that. That was because of who he is, not because of us. That was because of who he is. Our love must come before accepting that gift. Did you know that? Did you know that? Did you know that love of God comes before the salvation of your soul? I don't know how many people think or know that. You have to come to a acceptance of who and what he is and love it to accept fully the grace and the gift of Jesus. You have to. That happens before that. Otherwise, you're accepting something grudgingly, and it doesn't make sense to do that. Why would you? Why would you take a gift from somebody you don't love, especially that kind of a gift? First of all, the gift doesn't have any weight. You'd be suspicious of it all the time. Knowledge of who he is comes long before you're saved. Intimate knowledge of who he is comes after. Knowledge of your space before him comes before you're saved. Knowledge of who he is after. It's like me, look at it like this. It's like me knowing about a car. I have to know that a car can move, can hold me, and it can go forward and take me to a place. Okay? I have to know that about the car before I get in. I'm not going to obviously get in a car with no wheels, no engine, and expect the car to move forward. That's insanity. I have to know something about the car in order to trust the car. However, intimate knowledge about the car, how it drives, how it handles on corners, how fast it can go, all of that happens after I'm in the car. I don't get a full appreciation of that car until I'm in it and moving forward. So for man, we want to have intimate knowledge of God without accepting him. And our effort to do that leads us to doing all kinds of dumb stuff like trying to be God ourselves because we're going based on just a superficial, ineffectual knowledge of him. So what we do, we build. We build and we build and we try to do what we can do in our own steam to get to where we want to get to. There's one problem. He will not contend with man forever. He will allow man to do all kinds of crazy, insane things because they have that will. But he will not put up with it forever. There will come a time when Babel will be ended fully, unequivocally, and will be unable to restart. And unfortunately, men today are going forward with Babel 2.0. They have AI now. AI will become their new God. Now, I've said this, maybe not on this channel since coming on to Straight Talk, but I've said this before. I think all the signs and wonders in Revelation are going to be accomplished not in reality, but up here. The fooling of man will happen here. It will happen here. You will see men believe things that are not reality. I would not be surprised if the entirety of Revelation happens right before our eyes while they're closed in some alternate reality. I wouldn't be surprised. And men will see that and think that's real. Look at it today. Okay, let's look at the precursors just for a minute. People honestly believe that real life takes place on their phone. People genuinely believe that they can live vicariously through people's actions that they see on a phone or on a screen. Something projected to them is now reality. If I can convince all of mankind to think one thing, I've accomplished Babel 2.0. If I can get mankind to all relate and connect in one language, I have done it. And if I can convince them that they can make it to heaven without God, 2.0. That's their goal. Make it to heaven without God on their own steam. Babel 2.0. This is the new Babel. So, when looking at things like this, you have to consider what the enemy's goal is, okay? The enemy's goal is ultimate separation from for man from God. That's their goal. They want complete separation. And whoever they can pull with him, they're going to pull. They can do things without him. They can change whatever he has created. Men can be women, women can be men. Men can have babies, women can procreate with other people and become fathers. The world itself is trying to create for themselves a whole new reality. And in time, that reality will supersede the need for God. In the overall scheme, nothing supersedes the need for God because everything exists because of him. If he were to remove his presence from earth, everything dies. If tomorrow God decides to just withdraw who he is in its entirety from earth, nothing exists. Everything goes bye bye. Everything will just become a plume of dust. Mankind doesn't want to accept that. They believe they can avoid all of it. They genuinely believe they can avoid all of it. So when God goes down, and says, no more. It will be a grave day for many who believe that they could do it. And that's both believers and unbelievers. Because there are many believers that are building for themselves their own kingdom too. That there are many Christians joining into the, or I couldn't even call them Christians. There are many who claim to be Christians that are building for themselves a portion of that city in the new Babel. It's a grave day for God's church, God's people. But understand what's coming and know this: if you do not hold fast to who he is, I don't care how much scripture you know. I don't care what preacher you follow. I don't care if you have all of the earthly knowledge there is. If you do not hold fast to who he is, you ain't gonna make it. If who he is not superseding everything else, you have to get to that point. It is the only reason that you're here. And it's the reason why I keep telling people to go back to him. If I'm nothing but an arrow, that's all I'll be. If I'm just a sign on the freeway, then that's all I'll be. Because what's coming is not for the weak, it's not for the unprepared. What is coming will not be pleasant. It will not be pleasant. It is going to be horrendous for many who do not follow. That is all I can hope people do. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about a question that I came across again by atheists, because I do think it's important that we tackle their topics and their subjects and their questions because they have them. The question I found was, how can the Bible be real if it's so full of contradictions? I'm going to try my best to find as many contradictions as I can on their side. Their side. If they have contradictions, I want to hear what contradictions they found. And I want to see exactly if that contradiction that they say they see exists, or whether it contradicts themselves and not the Bible. If what you thought the Bible says, and it contradicts what you thought it would say, that's not a contradiction of itself. That's a contradiction of what you think it says. Massive difference. So I want to see what it does. I want to see if what they think is a contradiction really is a contradiction. And if there is a contradiction, what that is. Okay. So we're gonna discuss that. Um, and then the next one on Thursday will be, why do I have to be responsible for the sin of Adam and Eve? Okay. Why do I have to be responsible for the sin of Adam and Eve? And tomorrow will be the contradictions in the Bible. I mean, if y'all find any, please let me know too. If you found a contradiction from one book to the other, a portion of the Bible from another, let me know what contradictions they are. In fact, here's your homework for tomorrow. I got it. I got it. Here you go. Perfect. I got the perfect homework. Here is the email address. Email me every contradiction you could think of that you found in the Bible. 1 to 5 million. I don't care how many contradictions you know of, send them to me and we will go through and see if those are actual contradictions or not. So there's the email. I expect to get a lot of emails. Be honest about yourself whether you believe it's a contradiction. It may not be one, but if you see it as a contradiction, send it in. And I want you to send me what the contradiction is. And I mean, I don't want you to just say, I think the Bible says this when it said, I want you to give me the contradiction from one portion to the other. Okay? Yes, exactly, Layla. Any contradiction you think of, know of, heard of, send it in. And I will try to tackle all that I get because I'm pretty sure some will be duplicated. In fact, I'm 100% sure some will be duplicated. So send them in. That's your homework. Even if you have to talk to somebody, let me know. Again, I'm no scholar, but I do know something about the author of the book. And knowing his character and who he is has helped me exponentially understand the scriptures. Exponentially. Exponentially. So make sure you tune into that tomorrow because that one's going to be good. So please send your questions in, your contradictions in, send them all in so we can figure it out. Even if you have to know people that are completely anti God, have them send their contradictions in. And I mean anything from who Jesus was to whether he was Satan or not. And the Bible says he was. Anything you can think of that's a contradiction, send it in. And we will see if you're right. Okay, we'll see if you're right. All right, good. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Again, no Savage Patriots today. We will be on Too Strong, and there is the mix tonight. Don't miss that. Um, for those of you that, again, the email down there, and there's the P.O. box if you have anything to send. I'll be checking today since yesterday was a holiday, and I hadn't checked since Thursday. I think Thursday was the last time I checked. So I'll check again today. And then the next time I want to check is probably Friday. I'll check on Friday again. And then, of course, if you are so inclined after speaking to God, there are your options for helping this train keep moving. Um, this is the best part about it. Even if you don't know the Bible well enough, I am sure you've heard some things that makes you go, did God really? I am sure. So if you even know that, that counts as a contradiction. So send it in. Send it in. Oh yeah, yeah. Too Strong was crazy yesterday. And I finished filing my report with the FBI. And I told him that I have all of the receipts. I have the written threat twice, and I have the uh, visual threat as well. So he is a HBI or a BHI, sorry. You know what a BHI is, right? I hope you guys know what a BHI is. BHI is a black Hebrew Israelite. That's what he is. He is a black Hebrew Israelite. And they're known for death threats. That's their MO. They have no chill about killing people. They want white people dead. They will be happy to slaughter them in the streets. These are their words, not mine. They have been known to issue multiple death threats to people. That's not something, and it's not even something they wouldn't go through with. It is something they feel 100% justified in doing. So, that kind of a statement from somebody that unhinged, I will make sure to report. And I did. So, um, I do have a warning for 1968, though. And here's my only warning to 1968. If you feel froggy enough to come to my home or send anyone to my home to cause anyone in my family any harm, it will be a very sad day for you and all that you know if I live. I want you to be 100% clear about this, 1968. If you even remotely attempt to cause me or my family any physical harm and I survive, it will be a very bad day for you and all that you know. I hope we're clear on that. Take that how you will. Do not attempt it. I already put my fail safes in place by reporting you to the authorities. If you still feel froggy, I will become a Louisiana cook and handle the frog accordingly. If you feel froggy, I will become a Louisiana cook and deal with the frog accordingly. I'm not playing with my family. Just want to make sure people understand that. I may look soft. I may look like I'm weak. I may look skinny and all that stuff. That's good. But please don't ever judge a book just by the cover that you see. Because sometimes the book may not contain the things you think it contains. Okay? Sometimes you're looking at a book like this and you're thinking it's a child's book and all the font is like 90. Sometimes the font is like 4. And the book this thin can carry sometimes to the size of, I don't know, an encyclopedia because of how small the font is. Don't judge it like that. Wouldn't be wise. Would not be wise. So I just want to make sure I put that out into the world so people understand how this goes. I've done my part to keep things out of my hands by putting it in the hands of the authorities. Now I have something on record. I have it in the ether now with people online. It's there to be seen, there to be heard. And if they decide to continue in my world, I gave the authorities a chance to act on it. And if they don't, then I have to. Really that simple. So, and in case you guys didn't catch it, go back and watch it. Go back and watch that episode. That was an episode and a half. That was one for the ages. Not gonna lie, that was one for the ages. That was one for the ages. So, in any case, love you guys. Mean it. Really appreciate your time, your input. Um, I really, really do, really do. Thank you for all that you've done in time, in your attention, your sharing of the videos, your liking of it, all of it. Really do appreciate it, even in your contributions to what I have going on here. Um, Much appreciated. And you will never be forgotten by me. Trust me. So, love you guys. I really do mean it. Have a grand rest of the day. We'll catch you too strong later and then on the mix tonight. Wisdom calls to you from the streets. So please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight to dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself in no way.